You know, in 2021, I felt Cooper Kupp should have won the MVP. He had an insane season, we all know that. But of course, if you aren't a quarterback, your chances of winning MVP are not only slim, but in this day and age, basically non-existent. Running backs have won MVP, the last time being in 2012 when Adrian Peterson ran for damn near 2,100 yards and carried a lousy Vikings team to the playoffs. But it seldom happens. We all know it's a quarterback award at this point. A good example of how difficult it is for a running back to win MVP is the 2003 MVP voting. In 2003, Jamal Lewis rushed for over 2,000 yards, and Priest Holmes set the record for most touchdown runs in a season. Yet there were 3 quarterbacks that were ahead of them in voting. Peyton Manning and Steve McNair each won it in a tie, by the way. Out of the 8 2,000 plus rushing yard seasons in NFL history, only 4 of those running backs were named MVP. Eric Dickerson has the record for most rushing yards in a single season with 2,105. But he did it in 1984, the same season Dan Marino broke 5,000 passing yards for the first time in NFL history. And a historic passing season always trumps a historic rushing season in the eyes of the writers who vote for the MVP. So yeah, even if a running back has a historic season, it's no guarantee they'll win MVP. But hey, at least they have a chance. Wide receivers, on the other hand, well, they have no chance. Yeah, no wide receiver has ever won MVP in NFL history. Now, I can see why Aaron Rodgers took home the MVP over Cooper Kupp in 2021, even though I believe Kupp should have won. But there's one season where a wide receiver should have absolutely won it. Jerry Rice needs no introduction. He is undoubtedly the greatest wide receiver in the history of American football. And for my money, he's a top 5 player in NFL history. I mean, we're talking about a guy who broke 90 catches and 1,200 receiving yards in his age 40 season. The 1987 NFL season is mostly remembered for the player strike, which is a complex topic that I'm not going to go into depth on. It's a topic that deserves its own video. The strike made it so Jerry Rice only played in 12 games in 1987. And how many touchdowns did he catch in those 12 games? 22. Let me repeat that. In 1987, Jerry Rice's 3rd season in the NFL, he had 22 receiving touchdowns in 12 games played. At the time, that was a record. Now it's second all time. It was broken in 2007 by Randy Moss, who had 23. But Randy Moss did it in 16 games. Jerry Rice's 22 receiving touchdowns in 12 games, that's an average of 1.83 touchdowns per game. Unbelievable. If the strike had not happened and he played in all 16 games, he was on pace for at least 29 touchdown catches. Could have had 30. A big reason why 0 all-time great wide receiver seasons did not result in an MVP is the quarterback throwing to him. As I mentioned before, the only 2 players to break 20 touchdown catches in a season are Jerry Rice and Randy Moss. The quarterbacks those 2 guys played with just so happen to be the 2 greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. No matter how good a season a wide receiver has, his stats are always going to be boosting the quarterback stats. And of course, the quarterback throws to other players too, so his stats will always be superior. Now, a wide receiver can still have a great season with crappy QBs throwing to him. This example here is crazy. In 2005, both Larry Fitzgerald and Anquan Boldin had over 100 catches and 1,400 receiving yards. Yeah, they both put up those numbers. What an insane receiving duo that was. Their quarterbacks, you asked? Kurt Warner before he got good again, and Josh McCown, who was never good. Now, those were elite wide receiver seasons, but not exactly all-timers. There is an all-time great wide receiver season where the quarterbacks were mediocre though. In 1995, Hall of Fame wide receiver Isaac Bruce put up 1,781 yards, the 2nd most receiving yards in a season at the time, but his quarterbacks were mediocre at best. Isaac Bruce's quarterbacks that season were the forgotten Chris Miller and former Super Bowl MVP Mark Rippon, both of whom were below average at best. The Rams did not win enough games in 1995 for Isaac Bruce to be considered MVP. Now, if you want to see what absolutely horrid quarterback play does to an elite wide receiver, well, look at Steve Smith's stats in 2010. In 1987, Jerry Rice caught touchdowns from 3 different quarterbacks. Well, actually, one of them was a running back, but you know what I mean. Joe Montana threw him 13 touchdowns, Steve Young threw him 8, and one from running back Harry Sidney, who, by the way, was one of the replacement players from the strike that season, and he actually ended up sticking around in the NFL for like 6 seasons. Cool. But with that being said, Joe Montana also had a pretty nasty season in '87. I mean, of course he did. It's Joe Montana in his prime. He threw 31 touchdowns in 13 games, which is also pretty crazy. But at the end of the season, the voters favored Rice over Montana. Joe Cool placed third in MVP voting, while Jerry Rice placed second. Ultimately, the winner of the 1987 Associated Press NFL MVP award was John Elway. I love John Elway. I'll argue with anyone who dares to call him the most overrated quarterback ever, but this was Jerry Rice's award. Hell, I'd even say Montana deserved to win it over Elway. John Elway tossed 19 touchdowns and ran another 4 in. That's 23 total touchdowns. As you should probably know by now, Jerry Rice caught 22 touchdowns. That is 3 more receiving touchdowns than Elway's 19 pass touchdowns in 1987. He also had a 1 rush touchdown, so yeah, Jerry Rice also had 23 total touchdowns in 1987. Difference being, Jerry Rice didn't have the ball in his hands on every play. In my opinion, a wide receiver scoring 23 touchdowns in 12 games is more impressive than a quarterback scoring 23 touchdowns in 12 games. And many agreed. Jerry Rice received 30 votes to John Elway's 36. Not that big a gap. I guess, as consolation, Rice was named the MVP by the Newspaper Enterprise Association and the Pro Football Writers of America, but that doesn't count. We all know the Associated Press MVP is the one that counts. Okay, let me just rattle off a few cool things about this insane single-season performance. In 1987, Jerry Rice caught a touchdown in every single regular season game. He caught multiple touchdowns in 7 of his 12 games. Yes, that's over half the games he played that season. And he caught 3 touchdowns in 3 games. Only 5 quarterbacks had more pass touchdowns than Rice had receiving touchdowns. Yes, that includes MVP John Elway. The craziest thing of all about this season is Jerry Rice was just getting started. This season was no fluke. He went on to have one of the greatest careers in the history of American sports. Will a wide receiver ever win MVP? Well, it's hard to say. Anytime a wide receiver is having a season like Cooper Kupp had in 2021, I'll always think, well, if Jerry Rice couldn't win the award in 1987, how is it possible for any wide receiver to win it? Hell, a kicker won MVP once, and a wide receiver still hasn't.